And the top focus is sour. President Donald Trump is growing incredibly impatient with Russia.
Russia's renewed sabotage of the last functioning external power line to the Zaporizhia nuclear plant intensified fears of a catastrophic nuclear incident as of early October. Satellite imagery reviewed by Greenpeace and McKinsey Intelligence Services revealed the damage came without signs of Ukrainian shelling, contradicting Moscow's account of the event and leaving the plant disconnected from the grid reliant now on diesel generators. The plant's cooling systems are under strain, increasing the risk of a meltdown scenario if fuels run low or systems fail. Ukraine views the move as part of a calculated Russian plan to force an energy crisis, justify tighter control, and eventually reroute the facility's power supply into Russia's grid. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. This step reflects a broader trend. As the war drags on into its fourth calendar year, Moscow seems to increasingly weaponize civilian infrastructure and energy supply as levers of control. Simultaneously, Kyiv has escalated its targeting of Russian internal systems, including repeated strikes on oil refineries and energy facilities, moves that have sharply reduced Russia's gasoline output and precipitated domestic fuel shortages. The Kremlin, reacting to constrained supplies, has placed bans on fuel exports and turned to import from Belarus to fill gaps, while exploring controversial additive-based solutions to stretch reserves. In parallel to this energy warfare, the air war has surged to new levels. On September 28th, Russian forces launched one of their largest aerial onslaughts yet. 595 drones and 48 missiles targeted Kyiv and other regions. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted most of the barrage, 568 drones and 43 missiles, but several strikes nonetheless struck civilian areas, killing at least 4, including a child, and injuring dozens more. The assault damaged factories, hospitals, residential buildings, and energy nodes. In Kyiv, a cardiology clinic was among the facilities hit. Ukrainian leadership responded with appeals for urgent air defense reinforcements, particularly further Patriot systems, as existing defenses strain under the scale and frequency of attacks. Perhaps reflecting a shift in Washington's posture toward the conflict, the U.S. has agreed to provide Ukraine with intelligence to support strikes deep inside Russian territory, particularly against energy infrastructure such as refineries and pipelines. Reports also suggest U.S. deliberation over whether to supply Ukraine with long-range cruise missiles, notably the Tomahawk, which could enable Kyiv to strike far beyond current reach. This would mark a significant escalation in Ukraine's operational capability if green-lit. At the same time, Russia is innovating its drone warfare. Russian forces have begun deploying unjammable fiber-optic tethered drones, essentially flying IEDs, that circumvent the radio jamming tactics Ukraine often uses. These drones lurk near supply routes, waiting for passing Ukrainian vehicles before detonating. The shift to physical tethered control highlights how both sides are pushing ever more creative asymmetrical tools, especially in localized logistics and rear zones. Ukraine has started deploying netting over key roads to intercept such devices, though defense against these threats remains incomplete. On the ground, Russian units continue to press new offensives, with particularly intense operations in the Kupiansk region. Moscow claims control over 2/3 of the buildings in the city, which would grant it a northern corridor toward Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, two of Ukraine's most heavily fortified urban centers in Donetsk. If captured, Kupiansk would serve as a strategic staging point for further incursions into the Donbas. According to Moscow's defense ministry, Russian forces have also managed to block Ukrainian counterthrusts from the north and west in this region, framing the urban terrain in a semi-ring formation. Yet independent analysis suggests that Russia's pace of advancement has slowed. Over the week of September 23rd, Russian forces gained just 13 square miles, about half of the territorial gains seen the prior week. On a monthly scale, the September advance of 146 square miles is down some 34% from August. The Institute for the Study of War cautions that Moscow's claims of massive gains are inflated, noting that real conquest may lag behind the grander public assertions. Still, Moscow has made inroads elsewhere. In June, Russian forces captured Kostiantinivka in Sumy Oblast, establishing a buffer zone along the border and opening new tactical vectors for drone and artillery raids deeper into Ukraine. That incursion now places Russian firepower within 20-25 kilometers of Sumy city, enabling intensified pressure on Ukrainian rear areas in that sector. The capture also complements Russian efforts along the Pokrovsk-Toretsk corridor, undercutting Ukrainian defensive lines from multiple axes. That said, the overall balance of control remains contested and dynamic. Moscow claims to have seized upwards of 4,714 square kilometers so far this year, though observers put that more realistically near 3,434 square kilometers. The current trajectory suggests robust pressure but diminishing returns, as Ukrainian defenses, international support, and attritional burdens slow Russian momentum. One of the boldest Ukrainian pushes came in the form of Operation Spiderweb. On June 1, 2025, Ukraine launched what it described as its most ambitious drone strike inside Russia yet, targeting 5 key airbases across 5 time zones, including Belaya, Dyagilevo, Ivanovo, Olenya, and Ukrainka. Deploying 117 drones concealed in trucks, the operation reportedly struck upwards of 20 aircraft, with Russia admitting that the attack did take place. While the precise damage remains disputed, the scale and depth of the strike signaled that Ukraine is learning how to extend the war offensively, not just defensively. In a related vein, Kyiv has also struck at the symbolic and infrastructural linchpin of Russia's hold, the Crimean Bridge. On June 3, 2025, Ukrainian agents detonated underwater explosives near one of its supports, temporarily closing the bridge and delivering a blow to Russia's logistical continuum between mainland Russia and the annexed peninsula. While Russian authorities sought to downplay the damage, claiming limited structural harm, the assault underscored the vulnerability even of heavily defended strategic nodes. Yet amid all these outer challenges, the war continues to carry stark human consequences. In September, a glide bomb attack struck Yarova in Donetsk Oblast while pensioners queued for payments, killing 25 and wounding nearly 20. Ukrainian officials condemned it as brutally savage and launched a war crimes investigation. Earlier in April, a missile strike in Sumy killed at least 35 and wounded 129, including many civilians and children. The attack was among the deadliest of 2025, striking at the heart of urban life as religious services unfolded. Despite the extremes of the conflict, diplomacy and exchanges persist. Recently, Ukraine announced a prisoner swap that brought home 185 soldiers and 20 civilians, many of whom had been held since early in the war. The tally of repatriated individuals now exceeds 7,000 since the invasion began. Zelensky's government portrays this as a sign that Kyiv remains committed to humanitarian norms even as warfare intensifies. Meanwhile, rising fears of expansion beyond Ukraine's borders have pushed European capitals and NATO partners into a new urgency. In Copenhagen, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk declared that this is war, warning that hybrid and drone provocations are increasingly crossing into NATO airspace and infrastructure territories. Danish and German officials echoed the shift, calling Russia's actions in the Baltic region a form of hybrid war targeting Europe at large. France intercepted a suspected Russian Shadow Fleet tanker tied to sabotage missions. One consequence of this framing is pressure on NATO members to act more directly. Some have argued that shooting down Russian aircraft violating sovereign airspace may be necessary, though retired commanders caution that such steps risk a larger escalation. Russia itself has dismissed comparisons to the Cold War, calling the conflict with the West fiery and blaming Western provocations. Amid all of this, Russia has undertaken its largest military conscription since 2016, calling up 135,000 men aged 18-30. Kremlin officials claim the conscripts will not be immediately dispatched to the front, but analysts warn that such assurances may mask longer-term plans to reinforce depleted units or rotate them into contested sectors. Moscow also apparently intends to grow its active military force to 1.5 million, positioning itself for a prolonged war of attrition. This push comes at a moment of growing internal strain. Russia faces economic turbulence, heightened by Western sanctions, fuel supply disruptions, and weakened revenue streams. In a rare development, Moscow has begun to cut parts of its defense budget in admission of resource limits. Analysts see signs that Russian morale may be fraying, especially among rank-and-file soldiers and regional elites dependent on war-driven patronage networks. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the latest Russia-Ukraine war updates and future outcomes? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.